Hello, and welcome to Illuminating Health, the UCSF School of Nursing's podcast that sheds light on health and healthcare issues affecting our daily lives. My name is Hannah Katagiri, a current student in the Family Nurse Practitioner specialty, and in today's episode, we are exploring how music impacts health and wellness.
When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you. When you're laughing.
Today I'm joined by UCSF School of Nursing professor Julene Johnson, a cognitive neuroscientist and co-director of the Sound Health Network, who studies how music impacts healthy aging and patients with dementia. I'm also joined by Sheri Robb, a board-certified music therapist and Walther Professor of Supportive Oncology in the Indiana University Schools of Nursing and Medicine, who studies music interventions for children and adolescents with cancer and their caregivers.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here, Hannah.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here too.
Many of us know from personal experience that music positively impacts our well-being, but there's also growing research that shows music's impact on our overall health, including brain health. Julene, how does music impact the brain?
Well, music can touch us in many deep and meaningful ways. Music allows us to express emotions and experience pleasure, and music engages multiple systems in our brain and body. Making music together can be cognitively challenging, even for beginners. And learning a new musical instrument or singing is also good for the brain. But listening to our favorite music, that can evoke autobiographical memories from our early life. Music can also be experienced in groups, which may facilitate social bonding and social support. So to link that to the brain, there are multiple brain networks that support all of these different music functions. For example, recalling memories associated with music involves the auditory memory networks of the brain. And then moving to music could engage the auditory motor brain networks. In a similar way, experiencing pleasure while listening to music can engage the auditory reward brain networks. And of course, these brain networks also work together. So for me, I never get bored with seeking out opportunities to engage in music, whether it's making music or listening to music or studying music in the context of aging and dementia. For me, it's a healthy addiction.
You led a project exploring how participating in a community choir could support older adults. Please tell us about this work.
I received some funding from the National Institute on Aging to develop the Community of Voices study, which was testing the hypothesis that singing in a choir for at least 6 months as an older adult may promote health and well-being. And to do this study, I collaborated with our local San Francisco Department of Aging and also the San Francisco Community Music Center to start 12 new choirs in San Francisco. And half of those choirs started their singing immediately after they completed their assessment, their baseline assessment. The other half of the 12 choirs waited 6 months to start their choir. And before they started the choir, and then again after, we assessed different domains of function. For example, we thought that singing in a choir would promote cognitive engagement, psychosocial engagement, and physical engagement. And we had health outcomes that were related to each of those engagement domains. We finished the study and enrolled about 490 older adults, in particular from diverse backgrounds. We found that singing in a choir significantly reduced feelings of loneliness among older adults and also increased interest in life. So the participants who started their choir immediately compared to those who waited had more purpose in life.
What did you discover about music and aging in your study?
Because there was a decrease in the feelings of loneliness, we think that singing in a choir can help address the issue of loneliness and social isolation. And we already know that loneliness and social isolation are serious public health risks in the United States, and in particular puts older adults at risk for dementia and other serious types of medical conditions. And the National Academy of Sciences of Engineering and Medicine had a report suggesting that about 1/3 of adults age 45 and older feel lonely on a regular basis. And nearly a quarter of adults age 65 and older are socially isolated. Singing in a choir potentially can help reduce feelings of loneliness and also social isolation. Although we didn't study how people were connected, we do know that group singing and doing it on a weekly basis could potentially help reduce the feelings of being isolated.
Thank you for sharing about the community choir project. It sounds like such a therapeutic project that supports older adults with isolation and feelings of loneliness, and it sounds like a very valuable project. Sheri, you're a board certified music therapist. How does music therapy improve health?
What's really interesting about music therapy is that we're, unlike music education, where the focus is in on teaching and learning about how to create and make music. In music therapy, we're using music and creating music as a way to address really non-music outcomes, health outcomes for people. One story that really stands out for me, when I was doing clinical work, I worked at Shriners Burns Hospital for Children in Galveston, Texas. And when I was working there, I was actually doing my very first research study that was looking at how can we use music to address preoperative anxiety that a lot of our kids would experience as they were getting ready for surgeries. So we were looking at using music and relaxation techniques to kind of help with that anxiety. So I was working with a young girl. She was about 5 years old. We'll call her Maria. I went in the night before surgery to visit with Maria. And I explained that I was going to visit her the next morning before her surgery. And what we did that night was we would pick music that she wanted to listen to the next day. And part of the intervention was using the tempo of the music to help with breathing. So we would practice some deep breathing techniques that could be structured by the music. Then we would move into something called progressive muscle relaxation, which is tensing and releasing different parts of your body, and you kind of move in a progressive fashion. And then the last part of that experience was really using what we call imagery or guided imagery. So that night, I just asked her, usually I would ask the kids that were younger, can you tell me about a place where you just feel really relaxed and safe, and give me as many descriptors as you can. The thing that was really kind of memorable about Maria was that the morning of her surgery, her mom was there. We always bring family members into these experiences too. But when we got to the imagery part, it became storytelling, like back and forth. So her eyes are open. We're listening to this beautiful, kind of relaxing music. And I'm like, okay, we're getting on a magic carpet, and the carpet can take us anywhere we want to go. And I described the colors of the carpet and how it felt to be floating. And I asked her, I said, where will we go? Well, the first place we went was a castle. So eventually we left the castle. We were flying into the night sky. And I told her, okay, there's a beautiful star. And you're going to reach out, you're going to grab the star, you're going to put it into this box, and then you close the box. But anytime you feel scared or you're worried, you can open the box and know that your special star is right there with you. So we kind of did this imagery, and then I would go with the kids, transition into the operating suite. This is usually where parents have to say goodbye, very stressful moment. But I got to go in with her and stay with her, and reminded her of her imagery as she's going under anesthesia and she's listening to her music. So the really fun part was, like, a few days later, I was on the unit and she ran up to me and gave me a big hug. And I said, how did everything go? And she goes, it was fine. I had my special star with me. So for me, that was really impactful of just how much that experience and those visual prompts and those thoughts can be so marked for us as we're experiencing stressful events.
Thank you for sharing your story about music therapy and the use of the amazing imaginations that children have to reduce their pre-op anxiety. How has music positively impacted your health and well-being? How do you use music in your personal life?
Well, I'll start. Only because on Monday night I met up with a friend and we went to hear this incredible musician named Omar Sosa. He plays Afro-Cuban jazz, and we just had an amazing time together sharing our friendship and listening to that concert. Also, this coming weekend, I have tickets to hear the Kronos Quartet at SF Jazz, but I'm going 3 nights because this is the end of one of their long 50-year history of Kronos Quartet. Two of the members of the quartet are retiring, and I want to hear 3 of the 4 concerts. So that's one way that I enjoy music. It's something that I remember the first time hearing the Kronos Quartet when I was in graduate school, visiting UCLA, and they have been my favorite music ensemble since then. And so, in addition to that, I love not only listening to music, but also playing music. And when I can, I like to play the flute and also a Finnish folk instrument called the gantala.
Wow, that's really amazing. It sounds like you enjoy a broad range of music and instruments. How about you, Sheri?
More recently, I have been much more intentional about taking time for quiet music listening, um, kind of in line with meditation. Taking a break, from what you're doing, from the work that you're doing, from, our lives can get so busy and it's just one thing after another. That actually taking time to just listen to a piece of music and not do anything else. So that means disengaging from the phone, disengaging from the computer screen, not doing dishes, not running an errand, but just sitting still and being quiet and being in the moment. I think that has done wonders for me. Yeah.
Sheri, how does music help with managing stress?
So we currently have a study that we're doing that's looking at active music making to help lower distress that's experienced by young children. These are children ages 3 to 8 years of age and their parent as they're going through cancer treatment. We know that young child distress and parent distress, it's highly interrelated. And our observations in working with young children is that oftentimes parents are with them, and if we can pull them into the experience, we have an opportunity to not only address the child's distress, but also the parents simultaneously. So this study is looking at doing music play together, parents and kids with the therapist. Can we use this to lower the stress that they experience? And more importantly, can we prevent traumatic stress symptoms from showing up after treatment ends, which is often happens for a significant number of children and their parents. So our work is actually grounded in some research that's looked at what are the elements of stressful environments versus environments that tend to be supportive or non-stressful. So when we look at stressful environments, they tend to be very unpredictable. The second quality is that it oftentimes constrains your autonomy. It takes away your opportunities to have choices and to feel like you have some control over the situation. And then the last quality is that there tends to be an absence of supportive people in the environment. So you can imagine that cancer treatment has all of those qualities. It's unpredictable. Um, Kids feel like their choices and their control has been taken away, and their parents are highly distressed, and that puts a strain on. That's their primary support figure. So we need to lower parents' distress so they can be supported. So when we think about music, music actually has qualities, or we can create music that has qualities of supportive environments. Supportive environments are predictable. They're familiar. So if we bring in predictable music that's familiar to young kids and parents, we're kind of embedding this nice familiar environment for them. We can also use the music to give back choices and control. And then because we're involving parents and kids together, we're creating this supportive environment. Findings from our first study that looked at using music and play in this way to help lower distress is that we found that for our parents that report us the highest levels of distress in their child, but also for themselves. So this is our most highly distressed parents, that if they were in the music intervention, they're the ones that got the most benefit. In fact, it looks like the music has this protective buffering effect where their distress levels after the intervention go down to the levels of our parents who are reporting the least amount of distress. So our goal with this intervention is really to understand, can we use the intervention to lower those high distress levels during active treatment so that we can prevent traumatic stress symptoms from showing up after our parents and families are done.
I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. Mom, mom, oh mom, banana, banana, so fun. Me, mom, oh mom, that's mom.
You've talked a little bit about music and its use as a buffer in distressing situations. Is there a specific genre of music that has especially positive health benefits?
I think, so many of us want that simple answer that if you play this kind of music, you will get this relaxing, non-stressing benefit. And that's really been hard to pinpoint. And most of the time what we find, it's a combination of things. There are probably characteristics of music that a lot of people would consider more relaxing. But maybe more importantly, Julene alluded to this earlier in the podcast, that it's the meaning, what meaning that music holds for you. What memories do you have that are attached to that? Do you find it pleasant and relaxing? It's interesting because I've heard many stories of people who find heavy metal music to be very calming and relaxing, and that's what they need in order to settle their bodies down. Whereas somebody else would be like, that would just absolutely drive me crazy.
I understand you're both part of the Sound Health Network. Could you please tell us a little bit about the network?
The Sound Health Network is an initiative of the National Endowment for the Arts in partnership with UCSF and also in collaboration with the National Institutes of Health, the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts, and Renee Fleming. And our mission at the Sound Health Network is to promote research and public awareness about the impact of music on health and wellness. And we do this by engaging a broad range of stakeholders, including scientists, music therapists, musicians, clinicians, nurses, music and arts organizations, and the general public. And in our coordinating role as part of the Sound Health Network, we help facilitate collaborations that help improve the quality of the research and the dialogue between disciplines that in the past didn't talk to each other very much. And what this is doing is accelerating our research about the impact of music to not only improve our health, but also improve our lives. So as you can see, with Sheri representing music therapy research, I'm doing research with aging and cognitive neuroscience. We all kind of come at this idea of how does music impact our music and wellness from different ways. And then we all work together to facilitate conversations.
Yeah, I think all of us together at the Sound Health Network have been working um, hard to develop this community of individuals who have a vested interest in music for health. And so I think my role on the leadership team is to bring that perspective in from the music therapy community and to engage both clinicians and researchers in that space. What's been really wonderful, and it's just been fantastic to work with Julene, she's such a dynamic and talented leader, is bringing in all these different people into this space where we value wide, diverse perspectives. So we have musicians who are interested in the benefits of music for health and how can they bring the gift that they bring of performing music and how can that be used. As well as researchers like Julene and Charles who are studying the intersection of the brain, how it processes music, and how does that help us understand at the neurological level, how do these interventions actually work. And then we also are engaging, stakeholders. Who are the organizations and community members who want to see services and programs more broadly available to people? It takes all of those moving parts working together. And the Sound Health Network has been a space to start to bring those different groups of people together to help make that happen.
It sounds like there's a broad range of stakeholders to advance research on the impact of music on health. Many of our listeners may be wondering how they can incorporate music into their daily lives to make it better. What advice would you offer?
Well, I think people should find the thing that brings them joy, that brings them peace. It can be, you know, learning to play an instrument that they've never played before, but letting go of feeling like you got to master the instrument and just enjoy the experience of learning it. For maybe for people who played an instrument when they were younger and they haven't played it in years, joining a community band or singing in a community choir can be a wonderful thing. Julene talked about social isolation and loneliness, which is really becoming a huge, significant problem, not only for older adults, but for young people too. We are surrounded by people, we're connected electronically to so many people, but yet people still feel lonely. So I think engaging in music making with people and having an opportunity to build friendships can be a wonderful way to do that.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that it's a very personal experience of music. And so figuring out what you love to do and maybe what's kind of mind bending and new that can teach you to listen in new ways. Share it with people, share it with your family members. Think about the across generations. For example, you might have a loved one who's older, a grandparent or a great grandparent, and think about ways you can share something related to music and talk about it. It just doesn't have to be just doing music, but you can talk about it. And of course, moving to music, and you can move to music synchronously, and I think they call that dance. That's fun across generations, even moving, simple tapping your foot to music and things and doing that together. But in our Community of Voices study, over half of the participants were a beginner to singing, and they didn't sing as an adult. They'd only sung as a child or not. And so it's something you can start at any age, 100 or age one, and you can hopefully do it something related to music throughout your life. And it if it gets too hard to do one aspect of music making, then shift to something else, or perhaps spending more time listening to all these wonderful uh, music streaming services that have come out. As a kid, we didn't have that opportunity. We had to put on a record or a CD, and now it's like the whole catalog of music is just at your fingertips, and of course, sharing that with others too. So get creative, start at any point in your life, and keep it fun. If you're tired of playing the piano that you played in high school, well, then try another instrument or try some other aspect of music. Don't feel like you have to just stick to what you've done in the past. Get creative, as they say.
Wow, thank you so much, Julene and Sheri, for joining us on this episode of Illuminating Health, and thank you to our listeners. We look forward to connecting with you next time.